The silver towers of the Galactic Academy stretched toward the triple suns of the Centauri system, their surfaces gleaming like polished mirrors. 12-year-old Alex Thompson stood at the base of the main entrance, his small human frame dwarfed by the massive architecture designed for beings of all sizes from across the galaxy. His heart pounded as he clutched his acceptance letter. Being the youngest human ever admitted to the Academy should have felt like a triumph, but the stares from passing alien students made him feel more like a zoo exhibit than a fellow scholar. "Specimen Thompson," a deep voice rumbled from above. "You are late for orientation." Alex looked up to meet the 6 eyes of Administrator Block, whose gray stone-like skin and towering height made him look like a walking statue. The administrator's tone carried the same disappointment that Alex had heard in every alien voice since arriving, the unspoken belief that humans were too primitive for this prestigious institution. "I'm sorry, sir," Alex said, straightening his back. The artificial gravity adjustments took longer than expected. "Excuses are a very human trait," Block replied. "Follow me." As they walked through the crystalline halls, Alex tried to ignore the whispers from other students. Some spoke in languages his translator couldn't catch, but their dismissive tones needed no translation. His acceptance had caused controversy. Many believed humans weren't ready for advanced galactic education. The orientation room hummed with energy fields, keeping dozens of different species in their comfortable environmental conditions. Alex took his seat in the human standard section, isolated from the others by several empty rows. "Your species barely mastered fusion power," a blob-like student gurgled from 2 rows back. "Did you brag your way in?" Alex bit his tongue. He hadn't come here to fight. His test scores spoke for themselves. Perfect marks in theoretical physics, quantum mechanics, and dimensional mathematics. But theory wasn't enough for many of the aliens. They wanted centuries of proven scientific achievement, not raw potential. The next few weeks proved harder than Alex had imagined. The teaching methods were rigid, designed for minds that processed information in precise, predetermined ways. But Alex's human brain worked differently. He saw patterns where others followed formulas. He made intuitive leaps that the methodical alien approaches dismissed as guesswork. Then came the day that changed everything. During his advanced quantum mechanics class, Alex noticed something in the Academy's standard model that didn't add up. The equations suggested possibilities that no one had explored or had been afraid to try. Late that night, he snuck into the quantum lab. The security systems were designed to detect normal biological signatures, but humans were anything but normal in this place. Alex's smaller size and unusual biochemistry let him slip through unnoticed. His hands moved quickly over the control panels, setting up the experiment that had been forming in his mind for weeks. If he was right, it would prove that human intuition could see things that pure alien logic missed. The quantum field generator hummed to life. Energy readings spiked in patterns that confirmed his theories. Alex's heart raced as data poured across the screens. He was right. He was actually right. Then the alarms started. Unauthorized experimentation detected, the system announced in 17 different languages. Security breach in progress. The lab doors slid open. Administrator Block stood there with 2 security drones, his stone face darker than usual with anger. Behind him, Alex could see Professor Reed, the only teacher who had shown him any real support, looking disappointed but also curious. "Specimen Thompson," Block's voice echoed through the lab. "You have violated 37 Academy protocols. Your experiment could have destabilized the entire quantum teaching grid." "But sir, look at the readings." Alex pointed to the screens. "The results prove that the standard model can be extended into new." "Enough." Block's voice cracked like thunder. "This reckless behavior is exactly why humans are considered too primitive for advanced galactic education. The Academy Board will meet tomorrow to discuss your expulsion." As security drones escorted him out, Alex caught a last glimpse of his experimental data. Someday, he promised himself, they would understand what he had discovered. Someday, he would prove that humanity's primitive way of thinking could see truths that the galaxy's greatest minds had missed. He just hadn't expected it would take 20 years to get that chance. The bright screens in Alex Thompson's laboratory cast a blue glow across his face as he studied the test results. At 32, he looked nothing like the small boy who had once roamed the halls of the Galactic Academy. His dark hair now had touches of gray at the temples, and his eyes carried the quiet confidence of someone who had proven himself right. "Sir," his assistant Tom called from the doorway, "the new quantum engine tests are complete. All readings are stable." Alex nodded, allowing himself a small smile. His company, Thomson Quantum Technologies, had grown from a small Earth-based startup into humanity's leading research facility. The walls of his office held 20 years of achievements. Patents, awards, and photographs of breakthroughs that had changed human space travel forever. "Send the data to the military research team," Alex said, turning back to his own work. "They'll be happy to see the efficiency improvements." He hadn't thought about the academy in years, or at least that's what he told himself. But the equations on his screen were the same ones he'd worked on that fateful night 20 years ago. He'd spent his entire adult life expanding on those theories, proving that his reckless experiment had been right all along. The door chimed again. This time, it was Maria, his head of communications, looking unusually excited. "Alex, you need to see this," she said, placing a holographic message disc on his desk. It arrived through official galactic channels. The disc projected a familiar symbol, the triple suns of the Galactic Academy. Alex's throat tightened as he activated the message. Professor Reed's aged face appeared, his stone-like features softened by what looked like concern. "Dr. Thompson," the recording began, "your work has not gone unnoticed by the Academy. Your theories on quantum field manipulation have become essential reading for our advanced students. We would be honored if you would consider returning to the Academy as a guest lecturer." Alex leaned back in his chair, memories flooding back. The humiliation of his expulsion, the long nights working to prove himself, the slow, steady progress that had shown humanity's worth to the galaxy. "There's more," Maria said quietly. "Look at the attached course materials." Alex's eyes widened as he scrolled through the documents. There, in the Academy's standard curriculum, were his equations. The very same ones that had gotten him expelled were now being taught as fundamental principles. His reckless theories had become textbook physics. "They're using my work," he whispered, "but they've never acknowledged where it came from." He spent the next hour reading through old Academy research papers, each one built on his original insights, but none mentioned the human child who had first seen the patterns. It was as if they had discovered these principles themselves, through their proper, methodical approach. The message disc still glowed on his desk, waiting for an answer. Part of him wanted to refuse, to let them keep teaching his work without admitting their mistake. But a larger part remembered the boy who had stared up at those silver towers, dreaming of bringing human insight to the galaxy's greatest minds. "Maria," he said finally, "prepare a response. Tell them I accept." "Are you sure?" she asked. "After how they treated you." Alex stood and walked to his window, looking out at the Earth facility he had built from nothing. Dozens of ships powered by his quantum engines stood ready for launch, proof that humanity had earned its place among the stars. "They expelled a child for seeing things differently," he said. "Let's show them what that child has become." As he watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, Alex thought about the Academy's invitation. 20 years ago, he had promised himself that someday it would understand the value of human intuition. Now it was time to collect on that promise, and perhaps save them from a crisis they didn't even know was coming. The transport ship dropped out of quantum space, and Alex Thompson felt his stomach twist, not from the deceleration, but from the sight before him. The Galactic Academy's silver towers still reached toward the triple suns, exactly as he remembered. Only now, they seemed smaller somehow. Approaching Docking Bay 7, the ship's AI announced, "Welcome back to the Academy, Dr. Thompson." As the ship glided toward the massive landing platform, Alex straightened his formal Earth suit. He had chosen it carefully, human clothing, but made with advanced materials that showed Earth's progress. No longer a scared 12-year-old in an oversized academy uniform. The docking clamps engaged with a soft thud. Alex took a deep breath and walked to the exit. The doors opened, and the familiar artificial atmosphere of the academy hit his lungs. Some things hadn't changed in 20 years. "Dr. Thompson," a voice called out. Professor Reed stood at the bottom of the ramp, his stone-like features showing more cracks than Alex remembered. "Thank you for accepting our invitation." Alex walked down the ramp, noticing how he now stood almost eye to eye with his former teacher, Professor Reed. Or should I say Director Reed now? "You've done your research," Reed smiled, revealing tiny crystal formations in his facial cracks, a sign of age in his species. "Please follow me. There's much to discuss." As they walked through the crystalline halls, Alex noticed the same whispers he remembered from his childhood. But now they carried a different tone. Students pointed and muttered about his quantum drive patents, his breakthroughs in dimensional theory, his company's contributions to human space travel. "Your old quantum lab is still here," Reed said as they passed the familiar doorway, "though we've updated the security since your creative use of it." Alex allowed himself a small grin. "I saw you're teaching my theories now, though your textbooks seem to have forgotten where they came from." Reed stopped walking, his crystalline eyes turning a deeper shade of blue. "Embarrassment," Alex remembered. "That is one of many things we need to discuss. The Academy's resistance to change has cost us dearly." They entered the director's office, a vast room with windows looking out over the Academy grounds. On one wall, holographic displays showed various star systems. Alex noticed something odd about the readings. "Please, sit." Reed gestured to a chair designed to accommodate human anatomy. "A new addition. What you're looking at is the real reason we invited you back." Alex studied the displays more carefully. The star systems shown were all exhibiting unusual quantum fluctuations. "These readings, they're similar to what I saw in my experiment 20 years ago." "Exactly." Reed's voice carried a weight Alex had never heard before. 3 months ago, we detected the first anomaly. Now 12 star systems are showing the same signs. Our best scholars are baffled. How many inhabited worlds are we talking about? 73 planets. Billions of lives. Reed's crystal formations dulled, a sign of deep worry. "The Academy Board doesn't want to admit it, but we need help. We need someone who can think differently." Alex stood and walked to the displays. The patterns were there, just like before. His human brain saw connections that the Academy's methodical approach had missed. But the scale was enormous. No longer a lab experiment, but entire star systems at risk. "Why me?" Alex asked, though he already knew the answer. Surely the Academy has thousands of qualified scientists. "Because 20 years ago, a 12-year-old human child saw something that all our advanced sensors and theories missed," Reed said quietly. "We were wrong to expel you, Alex. We were wrong about a lot of things. And now we're paying the price." Alex touched the holographic display, expanding the data from one of the affected systems. The patterns were beautiful in their complexity and terrifying in their implications. "How long?" he asked. "At the current rate of degradation, 6 months, maybe less." Alex nodded slowly, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Then we better get started." The Academy's main research lab buzzed with activity as Alex studied the 3-dimensional star maps floating in the center of the room. Around him, the galaxy's brightest minds argued in dozens of languages, their translator devices creating a chaotic blend of technical terms. "Impossible." Professor Green, a tall being with leaf-like skin, waved his branches in frustration. "The quantum decay patterns violate every known law of stellar physics." Alex zoomed in on one of the affected stars, its hologram casting a sickly purple glow across his face. The same patterns that had fascinated him as a child now threatened entire civilizations, but something about them seemed familiar. "You're all approaching this wrong," Alex said quietly, but the room fell silent anyway. All eyes turned to him, some curious, some hostile, some desperate for answers. "You're looking for the problem in the stars themselves, but what if the stars are just responding to something else?" He walked through the hologram, pointing to the quantum fluctuations. "These patterns, they're not random. They're like ripples in a pond. Something is causing them." "And what makes you so sure, human?" a senior researcher asked, their tentacles curling with skepticism. Before Alex could answer, the lab doors slid open. A group of young students entered, led by a blue-skinned alien with multifaceted eyes. "Dr. Thompson, we've been studying your old experimental data from 20 years ago." Alex recognized the student species, known for their perfect memory and pattern recognition. "And what have you found?" "The quantum signatures match," the student said excitedly, uploading new data to the hologram. "Not exactly, but the basic pattern is the same. Your childhood experiment somehow created a miniature version of what's happening to these stars." The room erupted in confused discussions. Alex felt a smile tugging at his lips. Leave it to the students, the ones not yet set in their ways, to see what the senior researchers had missed. "Impossible," Professor Green repeated, but with less certainty. "A child's unauthorized experiment couldn't possibly relate to a galaxy-wide crisis." "Why not?" a voice asked from the doorway. Director Reed entered the lab, his crystal eyes glowing with interest. "We've been so focused on following proper procedures that we've missed the obvious. Alex, what do you think is causing this?" Alex took a deep breath. What he was about to suggest would sound crazy to most of the aliens present, but he learned to trust his human intuition. 20 years ago, my experiment tapped into something. A quantum field that your instruments couldn't detect. The Academy shut it down because it didn't fit your understanding of physics." He gestured to the dying stars. "But what if that field exists naturally? What if something, or someone, is manipulating it on a massive scale?" The room grew very quiet. The implications were staggering. "You're suggesting artificial intervention?" Reed asked. "But the energy required to affect multiple star systems would be enormous," Alex finished. "Unless you understood exactly how to manipulate this quantum field, like I was starting to figure out before I was expelled." The young blue-skinned student stepped forward. "The math supports his theory. Look at these resonance patterns." As the student displayed more data, Alex saw others in the room beginning to understand. The crisis wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was the work of something ancient and powerful. "We need to act fast," Alex said, his mind already racing with possibilities. "I'll need a team. People who can think creatively, who aren't bound by traditional academy methods." "The board will never approve such an unorthodox approach," Professor Green protested. "The board doesn't have a choice," Director Reed said firmly. "We've tried doing things their way. Now we do things his way." Alex looked at the eager faces of the students who had found the connection to his old experiment. "You," he pointed to the blue-skinned student. "What's your name?" "Bright," they answered, multifaceted eyes shining with excitement. "Gather your best classmates, Bright. We have 6 months to save billions of lives, and we're going to break every rule in the Academy's book doing it." The makeshift lab in the Academy's East Tower hummed with energy as Alex's team worked through the night. They had converted an old storage room into their headquarters, away from the disapproving eyes of the senior faculty. Holographic displays covered every wall, showing the increasingly unstable star systems. "The quantum decay rate is accelerating," Bright announced, their blue skin reflecting the purple emergency lights. "The Proxima system will reach critical failure in 72 hours. Alex rubbed his tired eyes. 3 weeks of non-stop work had yielded progress, but not fast enough. Around him, his team of young researchers from 12 different species worked with a desperate energy. They had abandoned the Academy's rigid methods, embracing human-style intuitive leaps alongside alien precision. Dr. Thompson, called Rock, a crystal-based student whose internal structures sparkled with excitement. I found something in the ancient archives. Look at these energy signatures. The holographic display shifted to show archaeological data from a dig site near the failing stars. Strange devices had been uncovered, their purpose unknown until now. The quantum patterns they emitted matched perfectly with the crisis they faced. It's artificial, Alex breathed. Just like we thought. Some ancient civilization built machines to manipulate the quantum field, and now they're malfunctioning. Or someone activated them, Bright added, their faceted eyes reflecting complex calculations. Before Alex could respond, the lab doors slid open. Administrator Block, looking barely aged after 20 years, entered with 2 security drones. His stone face showed the same disapproval Alex remembered from his childhood. This unauthorized research group is hereby disbanded, Block announced. The board has decided to pursue a more traditional solution to the crisis. Traditional solutions won't work. Alex stood, anger rising in his voice. You've tried those for months. We're making real progress here. Progress. Block scoffed. You've turned these promising students into risk-takers, encouraging the same reckless behavior that got you expelled. Suddenly, all the displays in the lab flashed red. Bright's voice shook as they read the incoming data. Proxima's quantum field is collapsing. We're out of time. Alex turned to Block. You can shut us down if you want, but first, look at this. He pulled up his latest calculations. These ancient devices were built to stabilize stellar quantum fields, but they're failing. We can repurpose them, use them to reverse the damage. But we have to act now. The board will need time to review. There is no time. Rock interrupted, their crystalline form vibrating with intensity. Billions will die while the board debates. The lab fell silent as Director Reed entered, his aged form commanding respect, despite his obvious fatigue. The board has been overruled, he announced. Emergency powers have been activated. Dr. Thompson, you have full authority to proceed. Block's face darkened. This is highly irregular. So is the death of 12 star systems. Reed cut him off. Alex, what do you need? Alex looked at his team, young, brilliant minds unafraid to question old assumptions. Then he glanced at his childhood equations, still visible on one screen. Everything had led to this moment. The quantum field generators in my old experiment, he said. We need to rebuild them, but 1,000 times more powerful. Bright, your calculations on the resonance patterns. Rock, your analysis of the ancient devices. We'll combine them all. Impossible, Block protested. The power requirements alone. Nothing is impossible, Alex said, remembering the 12-year-old boy who had dared to challenge the Academy's beliefs. We have 3 days to save billions of lives. We'll break every rule of physics if we have to. As his team rushed to work, Alex caught Reed's eye. The old director nodded slowly, understanding at last what he had seen in that young human child so many years ago. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries came from those willing to ignore the impossible. The main Academy chamber had never seen anything like it. The ancient hall's crystalline walls pulsed with energy as Alex's team rushed to set up their modified quantum field generators. In the center of the room, a holographic display showed the Proxima system's death throes in terrible detail. Field generators at 60% capacity. Bright called out, their blue skin almost white with stress. The power grid is barely holding. Alex worked frantically at the central control panel, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls. The equations that had gotten him expelled 20 years ago now filled the air around him, expanded and modified by weeks of desperate research. This is madness, Professor Green shouted over the humming machinery. You'll destroy the Academy along with the star system. Actually, Rock chimed in, their crystalline form glowing with excitement. Dr. Thompson's calculations are perfect. Look at the resonance patterns. The chamber was packed with Academy staff and students, all watching as the human who had once been branded too reckless attempted to save 12 star systems. Director Reed stood by the main doors, keeping security drones at bay while Administrator Block fumed beside him. Final connections established, Alex announced. Bright, start the power-up sequence. Rock, monitor the quantum field stability. The modified generators began to pulse in harmony, creating interference patterns in the air that made some of the alien observers feel sick. This was physics beyond anything the Academy had officially sanctioned, a combination of Alex's human intuition and the precise measurements of his alien students. Proxima's quantum field is reaching critical failure, Bright reported, their faceted eyes reflecting streams of data. We have less than 10 minutes. Alex took a deep breath. Everything hinged on this moment. Begin transmission. The generators hummed louder, their energy linking with the ancient devices they had discovered. If his theories were correct, they could use the same technology that was killing the stars to save them. But only if they thought about it in a completely new way. Quantum field resonance established, Rock announced, their crystal body vibrating with the energy. The ancient devices are responding. Suddenly, warning alerts blared throughout the chamber. The holographic display of Proxima turned an angry red. Something's wrong, Bright shouted. The field is becoming unstable. Alex studied the readings, his mind racing. This was just like his childhood experiment, but on a massive scale. The solution had to be there. It's fighting us because we're thinking like modern scientists, he said suddenly. The ancient devices weren't built on our understanding of physics. Bright, adjust the field frequency to match your archaeological data. Rock, reverse the polarity. That violates every safety protocol, Block began. Exactly. Alex cut him off. Sometimes you have to break the rules to find the truth. Do it now. His team acted instantly, trusting him despite the protests of their seniors. The generator's hum changed pitch, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with possibility. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the holographic display flickered, and the angry red of Proxima's death throes began to fade. Quantum field stabilizing, Bright reported, their voice filled with awe. The decay is reversing. The chamber erupted in cheers as data streamed in. Not just Proxima, but all 12 affected star systems were responding to their treatment. The ancient devices, rather than fighting them, were now amplifying their efforts. Impossible, Professor Green whispered, but there was wonder in their voice now, not criticism. Alex stepped back from the control panel, exhausted but triumphant. He felt a heavy hand on his shoulder and turned to see Director Reed. 20 years ago, Reed said quietly, we expelled a child for daring to think differently. Today, that different way of thinking saved billions of lives. It wasn't just me, Alex replied, looking at his team. Human creativity combined with alien precision, youth and enthusiasm mixed with ancient technology. It was all of us working together. As the cheers continued around them, Administrator Block approached slowly, his stone face unreadable. Dr. Thompson, he said formally, I believe the Academy owes you an apology. And perhaps a job offer. 6 months after the Proxima crisis, Alex stood at the front of the Academy's largest lecture hall. The room had been modified to accommodate students of all species, with new sections for atmosphere-specific environments. Through the massive windows, the triple suns cast a warm glow across the eager faces before him. Welcome to Advanced Quantum Theory and Creative Problem Solving, Alex announced, looking out at the most diverse class in Academy history. I'm Dr. Thompson, head of the new Human-Alien Collaborative Research Department. In the front row, Bright and Rock sat with proud expressions. Both had accepted positions as his teaching assistants while pursuing their advanced degrees. Behind them, students from 30 different species filled the hall, including, Alex noticed with satisfaction, 5 humans. 20 years ago, he continued, I was expelled from this academy for conducting an unauthorized experiment. Today, we're going to recreate that experiment, safely, and with full permission this time." Laughter rippled through the room. The story of Alex's return and the saving of 12 star systems had become Academy legend. Even Administrator Block, who now stood at the back of the hall, managed a slight smile. But first, Alex gestured to a holographic display. "Let's talk about why breaking rules can sometimes be the key to breaking through." The display showed the ancient devices they had discovered, now fully understood and carefully preserved. Their study had revolutionized the Academy's understanding of quantum physics, proving that sometimes the old ways and new ideas needed to work together. Dr. Thompson, a young human student, raised her hand. "Is it true you're starting a new scholarship program?" Alex nodded, unable to hide his smile. "The Unconventional Thinkers Grant will support students who show exceptional creativity in their approach to science. Species, age, and traditional qualifications don't matter, only the ability to see problems in new ways. And challenge authority," Rock added cheekily, their crystalline form sparkling with amusement. "When necessary," Alex agreed, "though preferably with less property damage than my first attempt." Director Reed, who had slipped quietly into the hall, chuckled at this. The old administrator's crystal eyes shone with pride as he watched his former student teach. "The galaxy is changing," Alex continued. "The crisis we face showed us that we need all kinds of thinking, methodical and intuitive, traditional and revolutionary. Every species brings something unique to the table." He pulled up another display, showing the quantum field equations that had started everything. These patterns were first spotted by a human child, refined by alien scholars, and ultimately solved by a team that didn't care about species or tradition. That's the future of science. The students leaned forward, captivated. Even those who needed translator devices seemed to understand the deeper meaning behind his words. "So," Alex clapped his hands together, "let's begin. And remember, there are no stupid questions in this class, only unexplored possibilities." As the lecture began, Alex caught sight of a small plaque that had been installed near the door. It showed two images: a 12-year-old boy standing nervously before the Academy towers, and the same person 20 years later, leading the team that saved billions of lives. Below the images were words in every major galactic language. "Knowledge knows no species. Innovation knows no age. Science knows no bounds." Director Reed had insisted on the plaque, not just as a reminder of past mistakes, but as a promise to future generations. The Academy would never again reject an idea simply because it came from an unexpected source. "Now," Alex said, his eyes twinkling with the same curiosity that had driven him as a child, "who wants to help me break some laws of physics?" Every hand in the room, human, alien, and everything in between, shot up eagerly. As Alex began explaining the day's experiment, he realized that his greatest achievement wasn't saving the star systems. It was helping to create a future where every voice, every perspective, and every crazy idea would be heard. The 12-year-old boy who had dared to think differently would have been proud.